will hear the reaction of the residents of Vrindavan when they come to know of and see Krishna's position. And for us, at least for myself, whose heart is asmasaram, it is like a steel box. It is hard to, I cannot understand the consciousness of the residents of Vrindavan. But their love for Krishna is so powerful, it can melt every heart. Yesterday we heard, and we'll read some of what we heard yesterday, Krishna, who advented himself just to kill all undesirable elements in the world, he immediately climbed up a big kadamba tree on the bank of the Jamuna. When Lord Krishna jumped into the water, the river overflooded its banks to a distance of 100 yards, but something bow lengths, approximately 100 yards or 100 meters. And while Krishna was swimming about in the Yamuna, just like a great strong elephant, he made a great tumultuous sound which the great black serpent Kaliya could hear. And the tumult, the loud sounds that Krishna made as he was swimming around in the Yamuna, moving the waters with his mighty arms, it was intolerable for Kaliya. And he could understand that this was an attempt to attack his home. And therefore, he immediately came before Krishna, a huge black snake with so many hoods. He stood right in front of Krishna, who was indeed worth seeing, because Krishna's body was so beautiful and it was so delicate. Its color resembled that of a cloud, an effulgent cloud, and his feet resembled lotus flowers, very soft, very fragrant, and pinkish also. And he was decorated with shrivats, jewels. And Srila Sanatana Goswami explained that the shrivats marking on his chest was covered by his brilliant yellow uttariya, the cloth covering the top part of his body. And in the waters of the Yamuna, as Krishna was playing, he was smiling with a beautiful face, and his playing was with great strength, and it was clear that Krishna feared nothing. But in spite of Krishna's beautiful features, Kaliya felt great anger within his heart. He looked directly at Krishna and saw how beautiful he was. But what did he do? How did he react? He immediately felt great anger, and he bit Krishna on the chest. And then he wrapped Krishna, Bhujanga, with his coils, and he held Krishna so tightly that Krishna, we won't say he couldn't move, but he didn't move. How could the cows tolerate seeing Krishna in this situation? How could the cowherd boys who were with Krishna herding the cows, Gocharan, how could they tolerate seeing Krishna gripped in the coils of a serpent? And the affectionate boys and other inhabitants of Vrindavan who were farming nearby, they came to the edge of that Kaliya Ridda, that lake, and they became stunned. They could not move out of fear because they had dedicated everything to Krishna. Krishna was their life. He was their property. He was the object of their affection, and all their activities, everything was for Krishna, for His pleasure. And when they saw Him in that condition, they became overwhelmed with fear, and they fell down on the ground. The cows, the bulls, and even the small calves became overwhelmed with grief, and they began to look at Him with great anxiety. Later we'll hear how the boys fainted to the ground, and the cows and calves, they were crying in agony. No one could do anything but stand on the bank, unable to help their beloved Krishna. Now this is what we'll start reading today. While this scene was taking place on the bank of the Jamuna, ill omens were manifest. How do you say omen? An omen in Hindi. An omen. Okay. Bangla? Lakshan, symptoms. Asubha lakshan. The earth trembled. Meteors fell from the sky, and the left side of men's bodies began to shake and quiver. All these are indications of a great immediate danger. Observing these inauspicious signs, Ashubha Lakshana, the cowherd men, including Nanda Maharaj, became anxious out of fear. At the same time, they were informed that Krishna had gone to the fields, the cowherd fields, without Balaram. As soon as Nanda and Yashoda and the cowherd men heard this news, their anxiety increased even more. Out of their great affection for Krishna, and being unaware of the extent of His potencies, they became overwhelmed with grief. They became overwhelmed with anxiety because they had nothing dearer to them than Krishna, and because they had dedicated everything to Krishna, their life, their property, their affection, their entire minds, their activities, everything was for Krishna. And because of their great attachment for Krishna, they thought, today Krishna is surely going to be vanquished. Actually, the Sanskrit word was nidhanam, which means khatam ho gaya. They thought for sure he was going to die. But our acharyas have also translated the word nidaram. They have divided into nitaradhanam, that Krishna was their greatest treasure. So let us read some of the verses describing this very, very, very anxiety-filled. If someone is watching a movie or some documentary and they see some suffering there, and if you watch television, if you watch the news, you'll see nothing but suffering. If you want to disturb your mind, this is an excellent way to do it. But still, the bombs are dropping somewhere and we're sitting and eating or something like that, and it doesn't disturb us in the heart because there is no identification with the people that are suffering. But this is the essence of bhakti. There's a full identification with the Ashraya Tattva, with the source of love for Krishna, and a full identification with Krishna. So the devotees, when they hear, well, let us hear what's happening. Atha braje mahotpatas. Mahotpatas, that's how it's described here. They were ominous, very, very sad, dangerous omens of disturbance in Braja. Trivida hi ati dhurana. There were three kinds of disturbances. In the sky, meteors were seen. On the earth, there was shaking, there was an earthquake. And in the bodies of men, their left side began to quiver. So these were all ati dhurana, very, very disturbed conditions, and a sign that something inauspicious, dangerous, fearful was soon going to happen. Upata bhuvidivyatmani, those are the three kinds in the earth, in the sky, and within the bodies of men. Asana bhaya samsina. These were announcing that danger was now going to come. Then the next set of verses, 13 to 15, in this 16th chapter of the Bhagavatam, 10th canto of the Bhagavatam, it describes these inauspicious portents or omens and how the residents of Vrindavan reacted. Seeing the inauspicious omens, Nanda Maharaj and the other cowherd men, they became fearful. We hear that Krishna was everything for the residents of Vrindavan. Nanda Maharaj, Yashoda, Krishna's friends, the gopis. He was everything for them. But yet, seeing these fearful signs, they became so worried. Were they worrying about themselves? No. Immediately, the Bhagavatam says, they became fearful. They became fearful for Krishna because they knew that Krishna had gone to herd the cows that day without his elder brother, Balaram. Because they had dedicated their minds to Krishna. What does it mean to dedicate your mind to Krishna? What does it mean? It's a giving of the mind completely to Krishna. That happens automatically when there's love and attraction for Krishna. Krishna fills one's mind. Otherwise, there is such a struggle to focus one's mind on Krishna. And without love for Krishna, no matter how much we try to focus our mind on Krishna, our mind will wander to so many other selfish things, with me as the center. Me, 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 me. This is the action of ahankara. But these residents of Vrindavan, they were fully fixed in their relationship with Krishna. And that is the natural condition of every soul, of each and every one of us. Because they had dedicated their minds to Krishna, accepting him as their very life. That expression means that just like when the life, the prana or the atma leaves the body immediately falls down dead. So they had accepted Krishna in that way. And if they could not see Krishna or thought that something happened to Krishna unfavorable, he was their life, and it was like their life had left their body. They were unaware of his great power and opulence. They were unaware due to the madhurya bhav, due to the great sweetness of their love for Krishna. It pushed their awareness of his Aishwarya, his opulence, to the bottom. And even though every now and then that awareness would come to the top, as Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains, like when you're boiling a pot of milk and there is a blade of grass in that pot. And sometimes that blade will surface and then go down again. So similarly, the residents of Vrindavan at times become aware of the Aishwarya of Krishna. But their madhurya, their love for Krishna is boiling their consciousness so much that that Aishwarya goes away. And even there is one chapter in the 10th canto, the 26th chapter, where, does anyone know what the 26th chapter of the 10th canto is about? It is when after what Leela? Govardhan Leela. Right after that, the residents of Vrindavan approach Nanda Maharaj. Because previously they had heard from Nanda Maharaj, who was speaking from Gagamuni, Narayano Samo Gunai, that he has qualities, Krishna's qualities like Lord Narayan. But then, after seeing him hold up Govardhan Hill with the little finger of his left hand, they thought, this is impossible for a boy. It is not possible. He must be the Supreme Lord. But we see that he steals. How could he be the Supreme Lord? He is so naughty. And he comes and jumps onto our laps and gives us big embraces. How could he be the Supreme Lord? What does he steal? Butter. Do you steal butter? So they were bewildered by this duality. Is it for you? Tell them that you're busy. Huh? Okay. Tell them you're busy. Either that or change your phone to a cow ringtone. Then we don't mind if it goes But even after when Nanda Maharaj replied to them and they were remembering all of Krishna's activities, and they were confronted with the fact that Krishna was all-powerful, still their love for him. Hare Krishna. Welcome. What is your name? Pranav. Hare Krishna. Still their love for him did not go down even a little bit. This is the special characteristic of the love that the residents of Vrindavan have for Krishna. It is unlimited, it is ever increasing, and even if they become aware of his opulences, their love for him doesn't decrease in any way. So they were unaware of his great power and opulence. Thus they concluded that the inauspicious omens indicated that he had met with death. And they were overwhelmed with grief, with lamentation, and with fear. all the inhabitants of Vrindavan, including the children, the women, the elderly, all thought that they thought of Krishna just as a cow thinks of her as her helpless young calf. And thus these poor, suffering people, they rushed out of the village, focused intently on finding Krishna. Now, they were thinking that Balaram, especially, they were thinking that Balaram was not present. And Balaram is fully capable. And Balaram is so powerful. And Balaram's always think, because he has some Vatsalya Bhava, some affection. Elder brother Dao has fatherly affection, protective affection. So they thought that without Balaram there, anything could happen. Srila Sanatana Goswami says that because of their affection for Krishna, they lost their intelligence and they became like animals. Or in their affection, they became like cows. They stumbled about, they fell down to the ground, and they became increasingly greedy to see Krishna, who attracts everyone's heart. Where is he? How is he? That's all they could think. By nature, they were completely greedy to see Krishna. Tatra loyam api moolam ekalam. And Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he makes a humorous comment, I thought it was humorous, about that word nidanam, which means they were worried that he had actually died. And Srila Sanatana Goswami said that he was their great treasure. But then Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur said that Krishna had actually attained a great treasure. And what was that treasure? That he was playing in the waters of the Yamuna. So then, seeing the distress of the residents of Vrindavan, tams tata kataram viksha, seeing their distress, Bhagavan Madhavo Bala, Balaram, Bala, but he is called here Bhagavan Madhavo, Prahasya Kinchin Novacha. So he is called Bhagavan because he actually knows everything. And here our acharyas have given a very wonderful name or meaning of the name Madhava. It means that he knows everything. He is the king. He has the king of knowledge. So because he knew everything, Balaram was not in anxiety about Krishna. So how did he react? Prahasyam kinchid no vacha. He smiled. Sometimes prahasya, it means he smiled very subtly and gently. But some acharyas explain that he smiled very broadly because he wanted to assure the residents of Vrindavan that I am smiling, I am not in anxiety, and I love Krishna so much, so therefore you should not worry. And in this way, he saved the residents of Vrindavan from drowning in that ocean of grief. And he did not speak, Novacha. He did not speak. So one of the acharyas explained that he did not speak of Krishna's power and Krishna's opulence and that there was no danger for Krishna because he is Bhagavan, he is all-powerful. Because Krishna would not let him speak, because he wanted this pastime to go on. And he wanted everyone to see the nature. Krishna wanted everyone to see the nature of love for him, the love for him that the residents of Vrindavan possessed. Prabhu Gya, he knew everything. Anujasyasa, Anuja, he knew everything about the power of his younger brother. But one person, there is one person who becomes angry at Balaram. Because he did not fully assure the residents of Vrindavan, who was suffering so much. And that person, one of our acharyas explains, is Srila Sukadev Goswami. And he says that he calls him Madhava because he is born in the Madhu dynasty. So he is a hard-hearted Kshatriya. He's not soft-hearted like these cowherd men. So he criticizes him with full love, of course. But a very interesting comment. Here's the translation of that verse. The Supreme Lord Balaram, the master of all transcendental knowledge, he smiled, but he said nothing when he saw the residents of Vrindavan in such distress, since he understood Prabhavogya, the extraordinary power of Anuja, his younger brother. Now, continuing. Te anvesh amanadhaitam. Immediately, the residents of Vrindavan began searching for him. For who? Krishnam sujitaya padai. They began searching for Krishna everywhere along the paths. And how did they search? How did they know which path Krishna had gone in? Bhagavan Lakshanat Jagmu. They looked for Krishna's footprints in the soft dust of Vrindavan. And the dust of Vrindavan, if you've ever seen, of course not when it's so much of the dust of Vrindavan has now been covered by concrete, but sometimes when you go to the villages and there's been a lot of bullock carts or even tractors going on a road, the dust is sometimes about this thick, and it is so soft. And when one sees the dust of Vrindavan this thick and so soft, it is impossible, practically speaking, not to jump into it and roll in the dust of Vrindavan, because out of the three most potent and merciful parts of Vrindavan, there is, what is one of them? What is one? What is one? Say, Jamuna. Two? Govardhan. The third is the dust, Brajraj Dhuli. Is very, and to be decorated with Brajraj Dhuli, one feels that one is decorated with the most valuable of ornaments. So, the dust of Vrindavan was very, very soft. And even though the cows, and Krishna had gone hours before, even though Krishna had gone hours before, the lotus footprints of Krishna was still marked in the dust of Vrindavan, because the animals of Vrindavan, the cows, and even the wind of Vrindavan, no one would disturb these footprints, these most auspicious footprints of Krishna. And they had the unique signs of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And they followed those footprints, Padavayor Jamuna Tatam. They followed those footprints as quickly as they could to the bank of the Jamuna. Now I'd like to read a description of the footprints of Krishna, because when you're walking in Vrindavan, some of you may see them. This is a comment on the Rasa Lila section of the of the 10th canto, a comment by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. And it's important because there's a recommendation to meditate always on the lotus feet of Krishna. Oops. There. Please listen carefully. And this is he's quoting from the Skanda Purana. At the bottom of Krishna's middle toe, no, we'll start earlier. The particular places on his feet where Krishna carries the mark of the flag and other marks, Vishwanath, or the Skanda Purana explains, he explains the reasons for these marks too. At the base of the large toe on Krishna's right foot, the unborn Lord carries the mark of a chakra. And what does this chakra do to those who meditated upon the chakra at the base of Krishna's right foot, the big toe of Krishna's right foot? It cuts down, by this meditation, it cuts down the 6 mental enemies: lust, anger, greed, envy, illusion, and intoxication of his devotees. At the bottom of the middle toe of that same foot, which foot? Right foot. Lord Achyuta has a lotus flower. Now, what does meditation upon that lotus flower do? It increases the greed for Krishna in the minds of his devotees, who are just like bees and who meditate upon the lotus flower on his lotus feet. At the base of Krishna's small toe is a thunderbolt which smashes the mountain of his devotees' reaction to their past sins. In the middle of Krishna's heel is the mark of an elephant goad. What is that? Is Ankush? Yes? Ankush? Yes? Yes, Ankush. Which brings the elephant of his devotees' minds under control. The joint of Krishna's right large toe bears the mark of a barley corn, representing all kinds of enjoyable opulences. A thunderbolt is found on the right side of Krishna's right foot, and an elephant goad below that. And these are slightly different markings that are on the feet of Lord Narayana. So the residents of Vrindavan, seeing these markings impressed in the soft dust of Braja, they followed those markings. They followed Krishna's footprints to the bank of the Jamuna. They rushed there. Tatra tatra bi. Here and there they saw these marks with the Yavana Kushangni, the barley corn, the elephant gold, the asani, the thunderbolt, the dwaj, the flag. And these were adorning the dust of Vrindavan. These footprints of Lord Krishna, who is the master of the cowherd community. And these were on the path that they were following. And they were in the midst of other footprints, but not disturbed. And seeing them, O King Sukadeva Goswami, O Anga, O one who is as dear to me as my own body, they went rapidly following those footprints. Even the birds respected the footprints. Everyone did. The deer. And then they came close to Kaliya Ridya. Anta Ridhe Bhujanga Bhoga Paritam Marat. Within that lake, the Kaliya Ridha, Bhujanga Bhoga, within that serpent's coils, Paritam, enveloped, Arat, from a distance, Krishna, near Tam. They saw Krishna was there, and he was not moving. Upalabhya Jalasayanti. They saw him there within that body of water. And they saw also Gopams Chamuda Dishanam. All the cowherd men. They were completely bewildered. They saw that. Paritam Pashumscha. And they saw the animals, due to their distress, crying. Sankranditaha. They were crying. Parama Kajmalam Apor Arta. They were crying. They were bewildered. And they were in the greatest distress. The animals, Srila Sanatana Goswami explains, they were all around the lake, surrounding the lake. And they were crying intensely. And immediately, the gopas and the gopis who came there saw Krishna motionless in the serpent's coils. And they asked the boys who were lying on the ground, they said, "Tell us what happened." Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains, "Tell us what happened. Did Kaliya snatch Krishna from the bank and pull him into the water? Or did Krishna jump into the water by his own? Was this his own idea? Or did someone order him to go into the water?" But the boys could not answer. They were unable to answer because their minds, out of their distress in seeing Krishna in that condition, their minds had stopped functioning completely. And having their questions met with silence due to the distress of the cowherd boys and cowherd men, Nanda and the other cowherd men and women became even more stunned than the boys. Now, the next 3 verses describes the condition of first the young Braja Gopikas, and then Mother Yashoda and all the other gopis, the elderly gopis, and finally the cowherd men. the young gopis. Gopyo anurakta manasa bhagavan anante. The cowherd girls, their minds, anurakta, were completely attached to him. Bhagavati Anante, the unlimited Supreme Personality of Godhead. Tatsorida Smita Valokagira Smarantya. Smarantya. They were remembering immediately his loving smiles, and Smita, his glances, and his words, and they were enveloped completely in thoughts of Krishna with full attachment. And seeing him, their dearmost, graste ahina, grabbed by that ahina, by that serpent, Priyatame, their dearest, the Priyatama, who was the dearest, they were completely dear to their lives. Brishadukataptam. They experienced extreme mental pain. Sunyam priya vyatrete dradishu trilokam. And seeing or feeling themselves deprived of their priya, of their beloved, sunyam, all existence felt nothing, empty to them. Dadrisam trilokam. There was nothing of any value in the three worlds. Their hearts, full of Krishna, became empty, in distress, but in ecstatic distress, just remembering him more and more deeply. And this is something that we cannot imitate, certainly, but when in difficulty, we too must learn to take shelter of Krishna more and more deeply. This is one of the great challenges of life. In difficulty, although the mind wants to run in the opposite direction, call out to Krishna. Call out to Krishna, depend on him, and take full shelter of him. Srila Sanatana Goswami says, it was impossible that he could be held by the snake. Actually, it was impossible. But by his own will, he allowed himself to be trapped by the snake's coils. Because, and this will come a little bit later actually, because he was acting for the benefit of the world, and he wanted everyone to see how wicked this Kaliya was before he would punish him. And the gopis were extremely afflicted. They were suffering from so much grief. Why? Because by their nature, their very nature, spontaneously, naturally, they were filled with prema for Krishna. And he alone was most dear to them. This was their nature. And then Srila Sanatana Goswami says, amongst us all, our Atma, our self, is most dear. But dearer to ourselves than our own self is the Paramatma. But Krishna is the dearest of all because he has so many qualities that are charming. And Srila Sridhar Swami is quoted by Srila Sanatana Goswami and says, the meaning of the universe became shunya, empty, was that the gopis saw that the whole world was empty. There was nothing in the world anymore for them. And because of the intensity of their grief, they considered the world to be like themselves. Because they felt empty, the world appeared empty. Thus everything took on the form of grief for their beloved. Now, there are 2 more verses, but it is too late to read them. But then, don't worry. Everything after those 2 verses will take a very happy turn. Because Krishna, just as the devotees cannot tolerate seeing Krishna in any distress or grief, and that is their anxiety. Of course, Krishna cannot experience any distress or grief because his body, his existence is Ananda. It is full of bliss only. But yet, in their sambandha, in their relationship, Krishna can feel fearful being chastised by Mother Yasoda because his consciousness compresses from sarvagya, from knowing everything, to mugdata. He feels, because the love of his mother is so powerful, it controls him and makes him experience everything as a little boy. So although he can't actually experience any difficulties at all, the devotees, out of their love for him, cannot tolerate even the smallest difficulty for him. And similarly, Krishna is going to immediately respond to the distress, ecstatic distress that the residents of Vrindavan are experiencing, seeing him in that difficult condition, and he will immediately free himself. And our acharyas explain that Krishna cannot tolerate the difficulties of his devotees, which makes us think that the only challenge of my life is to actually become a devotee. And in the words of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, there is no lack of anything in this world other than Krishna consciousness. Okay, we shall end now. Thank you very much. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srila Prabhupada Bhaktivinoda ki jai.